Men. Manly men. Ooh. No, we're not talking 2.5 Men. Fortunately, we're talking about the latest film from a filmmaker who I quite enjoy, who has made some very interesting, thought-provoking pieces like Annihilation, like Ex Machina. Alex Garland has returned to his third feature called Men. Now, with things like Ex Machina and Annihilation, there is this stipulation of science fiction involved in both of those properties. This one takes a little bit more of a mystical, horrific turn, and it does it in a very compelling way. So, right off the bat, I want to specify and say this. It's not going to be for everybody. This is a film that takes a certain type of person to not only understand, but I think appreciate the artistry put into this. It's one of those films where divisive is going to be the key, but also there's going to be a huge audience divide because it's a lot to process. It's very much an idea being formed that could go over people's heads or be too grotesque for some people. So be advised, if you do go see this, there's going to be a lot of weird body horror, a lot of weird gore, a lot of weird psychological gore. It's like, calm down and just maybe don't see it if you are with a child or just wanting something casual to watch. Not good for that. Literally, when I was watching this film, an older couple walked out of the theater that I was in. So be wary of that. It's something to look out for. But all that said, Men is a very fascinating film. So we have Jessie Buckley, who's an actress I enjoy seeing. When she pops up in anything, I'm smiling. And Rory Kinnear, a guy who I adore. This man is getting some great roles. He really just shows up in anything and it feels better. I love seeing him in it. They play pretty much the two leads of this film. This woman, there's an accident in her home life and she decides, I want to do something for myself. I'm going to move into this place, kind of like in the distant wilderness, just like away from civilization a little bit, but it's really close to a village, just like a nice estate that she's staying at. And suddenly she realizes that the patrons of this town are against what she is thinking. And that's something, again, that's going to cause a massive divide in this film. That is the core message of this film. Because very clearly, and this is going to be a problem, I think, for some viewers in particular, a message that Men is trying to say is that most guys are the same and they will never change no matter how hard they try. There is a lot of victim blaming in this film where it is pretty much every male character is essentially blaming the woman for every hardship she deals out to them. And that is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. I know for a fact I as soon as that stuff kind of started to happen throughout the film, like, okay, now I see what you're trying to say with Men. It's a scary horror film, of course, but this is just a message like, you can be with a man for so long and they say they're going to change, but they won't. You can know these people. They're always going to blame you for the faults of themselves. And it's such an interesting idea, especially to explore from a male filmmaker. It's very much this idea that feels almost like a woman director or a creative team directly female would come up with, because it does not treat men in a positive light. And that's another thing that's going to upset some people, but it's not wrong. It doesn't shy away from how men treat a situation that's being treated in this situation. I don't want to get too much into it. There are certain moments about death and guilt that are brought up. And I think on every side of the feeling, you see like certain types of men trying to comfort this woman through her guilt and her pain, but also blaming her for this guilt and this pain. And I think that's an accurate portrayal. It's not every man, but maybe I think that's the message that this is trying to get. It's not every man, but it is every man. You know, it's kind of like it says it's not, but it is. And that's what's starting to happen with this woman, that every time she sees a different face out there in the world, she starts to perceive this person as the same thing because all men are the same essentially and are treating her this way. Interesting. Kind of interesting in that way. There's another like religious undertone that gets brought up early. I think there's like this tone of like the Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit thing, and it's woman who corrupted man, and man is always the constant in the universe and nothing will ever change when women are supposed to conform to a man's world. That's kind of what it feels like it's being said here. It is very scary. Like, there are some very intense moments here. Body horror out the wazoo. Like, this thing goes up to 11 when it goes into these body horror angles. Very intense. Very creepy. Psychologically, it's very disturbing, too. It takes you on a really scary journey. And this woman is dealing with a lot. She's experiencing a lot of crazy stuff, and you feel for her. You are mourning for her. The world around her is intense. It's very kind of Get Out-like, where you're just seeing this as a very distinctive storyline that goes a little bit more insane and creepy than Get Out. It's pretty interesting. Just from a filmmaking perspective, everything is firing on all cylinders. The directing, the cinematography, the lighting, the editing, the use of sound, the use of score, it's all firing perfectly. And there's also just a great sense of dread you are feeling through every scene, just connecting it to the next one. It's also very slow. This is not a dialogue-heavy film, and that could be a problem for some people where not everything is going to be explained to you, not everything is going to be laid out for you to understand. It's going to take its moments to get there, and then maybe you'll understand it. The last, climactic ending of this film, maybe 5 lines of dialogue. And I'm like, that's impressive. It's just such an interesting ending, and it's an ending that really made me think. And I just sat in the theater for a second. I'm like, okay, I think I know what you're trying to say here. And maybe this is hard to talk about because I am a male talking about this, and how I interpret this story could be different than how a woman is going to interpret this story. But I really got this sense that the actual theme was being here was men won't change. You don't try to make them change. They will blame you for everything wrong with them. Men are unruly. You can't fix them. And maybe that's not what's being said. That's just kind of the theme I got from it. And that made for a very interesting study. These two actors, Buckley and Kinnear, they play off each other well. You just see Kinnear going all out in certain roles, the way he portrays certain types of people. Very cool. Very fun. It's an interesting film. And it's one that I was impressed with just from a filmmaking standpoint. I think the script looked tight. I think the characters were interesting. Everything was working on this film, and I did like that. Is it exactly my cup of tea? I don't think so. I wouldn't normally actively seek out these types of films, but there's something there to like. I do like the body horror because I think that's impressive to see from today's standpoint, a film being released to a lot of people is doing this. But again, it's an R-rated film, so you should expect that at this point. I don't know. I really thought this was an interesting idea being presented. While not something I particularly like, I cannot fault it for being exactly what it's trying to say. I don't think this film is bad. It's just not something I actively enjoy. So, I think it's worth the watch. If you can handle something like this intensity, this fearfulness, might be something you'd enjoy. So, Men. I am going to give... Not men, not all men, but men. The show. I don't know where that joke was going. Men, I am going to give a 7 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.